Hello, BookTube. I had a bunch of errands to run first thing this morning that had nothing whatsoever to do with the Brattle Book Shop in downtown Boston, so you can guess how the rest of this video is going to go. I, of course, went there. I, of course, made a detour to go and spend some time at the Brattle Book Shop, and I contend that you would do the same if you had the Brattle within walking distance. The Brattle is an antiquarian bookstore in downtown Boston. They have a third floor that has the stuff you would ordinarily associate with an antiquarian bookstore, limited editions and first editions and whatnot, collectible stuff. But the first and second floor it's just general purpose used bookstore that is crammed to the rafters with books. Just double stacked books in almost every section of the store. And in addition to that, they have a sale lot outside that is huge. It's not one or two barrows. It's not one or two bookcases. It's gigantic. It's thousands of books for $1, $3, or $5, organized in no way other than price. So you have to look at everything. you can't like you could inside the shop. You can't look at a whole section and say, "Oh, I'm not interested in that," and pass over it. You might miss a book you've been waiting for if you do that. I spent a lot of time out in the sale lot of the Brattle, even when it's inclement weather. It was a little chilly this morning, for instance, which already feels weird and anachronistic. We had one cold day this winter in Boston. We had no snow, no sleet, no nothing like that. So it feels already a little bit weird for the temperature to actually be cold. But it was just a little bit chilly this morning. I drank it up because it's entirely likely that it's the last time that it will be cold in this area of the United States, in Boston. Well, I won't say forever, but Milankovitch cycles being what they are, humans will long be gone by the time it next happens. So you never know. I never know, but I know that I will see it. I know that I will see the last snowstorm in Boston, the last cold day in Boston. So I drank it in, and I shopped all around, and I got a bunch of books. Although, looking at the stack here, I can't help but notice that it's a smaller stack than usual. And I wonder if that's because my bag is smaller and I am acclimating to it. That would be horrifying to think. But let's see what we have here. So I've got two paperbacks. Only two. Is that right? Yeah, only two paperbacks. And they are of an old vintage paperbacks once upon a time, 40 years ago, did a run of books specifically designed, a sort of imprint of travel writing. And I've been thinking about them fondly. I used to have a whole library of those books. I used to eagerly wait for each new one to come out. I've been thinking of them fondly because Mark at Book Time with Elvis and I are doing a new BookTube event in April where we read travel writing. We're opening a new BookTube event. We're hoping that you all join us, where once a month we pick some piece of travel writing. S&M Journeys will start in just a few days. And I've read an enormous amount of travel writing, and this is just making me, the proximity of this event is just making me want to binge on this stuff all over again. I have quite a bit of travel writing here, but I found two of those old vintage paperback travel library type things that I haven't seen in ages. And so I grabbed them both, not only because I think I have ebooks of both of these, but I want them not only for how good they are, but also for a slight bit of nostalgia. I remember loving these things when they were coming out, long before there were such things as ebooks. And they're both by the same author, one of the great living travel writers, at least I hope he's still living, Redmond O'Hanlon. And I found his two most famous books, In Trouble Again, where he travels from the Orinoco to the Amazon, hacking his way through raw forests most of the time. Travels with James Fenton, who's come up on this channel a couple of times just recently. It's seen better days, but it is an absolute, you could tell right away when you were reading it that it's an absolute classic of travel writing. Same thing with this one, which is as new as the day that it came off the press, even though this is, well, let's find out. Oh no, I think it was this book where he travels with Fenton. Yeah, Arthur copyright photo. Now, Vintage Departures editions, 1987. 1987 is when this book came out, so 40 years. And this is Into the Heart of Borneo, in perfect condition. This is the one. I'm pretty sure this is the adventure where he travels with James Fenton. They're both hilarious. not all travel writing is, but the O'Hanlon goes for humor. They're hilarious. They're incredibly atmospheric and evocative. They're all the sorts of things that we're going to talk about on our S&M journeys. But we're not starting off. I'm hoping that we get to Redmond O'Hanlon. This is not a limited thing. Mark and I will be reading travel writing until he dies of old age. So it's wide open ended. I'm hoping that we get to Red O'Hanlon at some point or other. But we're starting off with A Time of Gifts by Patrick Lee Fermor. But I had to grab both of those. Absolutely. I mean, I saw them for $1 a piece. I couldn't leave them behind. Then I found a book that is a sequel. And sometimes, I mean, I confess, when I saw this, I at first thought, well, okay, I really want the original, not the sequel. But you absolutely can't behave that way at the Brattle sale lot. You have to take what it gives you. If the sequel to a book crops up, or book 3 in a series of 5 books or something like that, and your impulse is, well, I won't get it because it'll just stick out. It'll be one odd item. That is the wrong impulse, because the other books in the series could easily be in another box ready to come up to the sale lot. It could be that the person who sold volume 5 in a series sold them all. That was my original thinking, was that I really kind of want the first book, but I'll grudgingly take the second book. The more I think about it, the more I realize that the second book may be more interesting to me than the first one. This is Stanley Unwin, who was forever and ever, he was George Allen and Unwin publishers in the UK. And he wrote a book called The Secrets of Publishing that was phenomenally successful, far more successful than he was a seasoned pro in the book world, and it caught him totally by surprise how popular that book was, how many imprints it went through, how many revisions it went through, how many translations it got. And then years later, based on the back of that, he did a work of autobiography, his life as an editor, that he called The Truth About a Publisher. And when this thing came out, I don't know the actual date here. I'm going to say the 1970s. No, 1960. When this thing came out, especially in the UK, there was no reason to put his name on the cover. Everybody knew the book. Everybody knew the predecessor. Everybody knew the look of the man. And this is his story about being a publisher, about dealing with authors and dealing with other editors and dealing with manuscripts and prices and whatnot. I usually find those books absolutely fascinating. And of course, to all Tolkien fans, I'm doing a read-through of Lord of the Rings, and all Tolkien fans owe him a huge debt of gratitude for the Lord of the Rings. So we owe him a huge debt of gratitude for looking at this thing and immediately realizing, I wonder if I could find it really quickly. Because, you might not come across this book. There were many important books issued during this period to which I should like to refer, but I must confine myself to the most exciting, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, in connection with which my son Rainer played an important part. Like him, we were all of us at Museum Street Hobbit fans, and were longing for a sequel. But when we learned that it was the work of an enormous length, primarily intended for adults, upon which Tolkien had been engaged for over 20 years, we were, some of us, rather aghast. But my son was not intimidated either by the appearance or length of this formidable manuscript. He pronounced it a work of genius, which we simply must find a way of publishing, even if it meant issuing it in 3 volumes. I was away in Japan and wrote at once agreeing to its acceptance, even if it involved a loss of as much as £1,000. When on my return I was able to read a set of proofs, I recognized at once that we were backing a certainty, and that there would be no question of losing money. It was a book for all time, which will be selling long after my departure from this world. And he goes on to talk about that. He goes, they sent drafts to booksellers, influential booksellers at the time, find out what their initial reaction was, and got back mostly raves. But it won't just be, I'm sure that Tolkien is only a very small part of this book, and I don't know that I've ever read it. I read Secrets of Publishing, but I don't think I've ever read the sequel. So I should stress, I am happy to have it. And if Secrets of Publishing never shows up at the Brattle, that will be just fine by me. Then we have a reprint volume of a famous work. I had this in a crappy trade paperback. I had this in a mass market paperback that I would love to see again someday. But I found it in a beautiful hardcover that sort of a squat square thing that prompted me, because it's been a long time since I read this book. I really am due for a reread. This is Robert Massie, who's a historian primarily of Russia that I really, really like. I absolutely love his books, and this is one of his most famous ones. Certainly, I think this thing probably outsold anything else that he did, unless maybe Peter the Great. But this is Nicholas and Alexandra, and kind of a neat, what is this even called? Common Reader Classic Bestseller. I guess they put the date on it because they were dating each of the books that they reprinted. And there you have our main characters, Nicholas and Alexandra. And this is the story of their meeting. It's the story of their Russia, the story of their love and their family, and also their tragic ending. A great big fat thing, but I realized as soon as I saw it that, you know, I'm overdue for a reread. It was $1. I need it in my bookshelf anyway. So, and then we have 2 books by the same author. And I believe that one, Frida, stop it, baby. Stop it. Come up for air. Anyway, where was I? I believe that one of these things actually fits inside the other. So, but I wasn't sure of that, and I was about to stand there in the carts cross-checking the index and the table of contents, so I just got them both. They're both by Irving Howe, the great critic Irving Howe. One is an earlier work called The Critical Point. And this is a collection of literary essays of his. And inside here, somebody tucked a review that he wrote for the New Republic in 1992 that actually dovetails on a question that came up in a Q&A on this channel. In my most recent Q&A, someone asked, what do you make of Tolstoy's later works? The ones that get self-evidently moralizing and seem to have no interest in entertaining the reader. What do you make of those? And this is a piece that somebody clipped out by Irving Howe about a defense of late scolding Tolstoy. What an amazing coincidence. And the person clipped it out, and it's not in this book. This book, I believe, is earlier than that. So whoever had this, yeah, this is 1973. So whoever had this kept it for years and was an Irving Howe fan, just like I am, which is great. And then the other book, I'm pretty sure everything that's in The Critical Point is in this book, but I wasn't about to pass it up. This is Selected Writings, 1950 to 1990, which has, I noticed when I was looking at the table of contents, that it has a lot of what's in The Critical Point. Although, interestingly enough, I don't think this volume has that essay on Tolstoy. So I got the one book that doesn't have it. I got the later book that doesn't have it, but someone saved it and put it in the book. So that's great. All the more in favor of that habit. I have adopted that habit wholesale myself of putting pertinent material inside the book rather than making a separate file for it or anything like that. This has a lot more of Howe, and Howe is incredibly sharp. He's just a bracing critical reader. So, oh, yes, okay. Then we have what was probably the find of the day, for pure coincidence sake. I actually have them near here somewhere. Well, this is Edward Weeks, who was for a long time with the Atlantic Monthly here in Boston. He was their editor for a long time. He's also had all sorts of other jobs with the Atlantic Monthly. He was basically synonymous with the magazine forever and ever. And I found a book of his that is illustrated by Walter Dower called Fresh Waters. I can get you an illustration so you can see. There are all sorts of spot illustrations all throughout. This is a fishing book. There are spot illustrations all throughout, but there are also these halftone, bigger illustrations that are often quite nice. Let me see if I can get another one here. Yeah, look at that. That is lovely. And this tells the story of Weeks being befuddled by the whole passion about fishing, even though a lot of the booksellers and authors and editors that he knew in Boston in connection with the Atlantic Monthly loved it. And then finally he was coerced into going, as he points out in this book, at least there'd be lots of liquor, and ends up loving it, ends up loving fishing. Now, I love spending time with Edward Weeks, and I have been doing that. Yes, I have been doing that just recently. With 2 of his other books, In Friendly Candor, which is about a memoir about being an editor. This is very much along the lines of The Truth About a Publisher. This is very much along those lines. And also My Green Age, which is more of a straight-up autobiography, including this incredible author photo of a very young Ed Weeks when he was an ambulance driver in World War Uh, this is going to survive entirely by whether or not the author is good company on the page, to put it mildly. His autobiography, no. His book about editing, no, absolutely not. But this is about fishing, which I deplore. So I realize I deplore it, even though I realize that lots of great books have been written about the subject. I wouldn't pass those books up at all, but I would never in a million years not go with him or someone else when they did this, but also condone it. It's barbaric. But I'm pretty sure from past experience that I'm going to be able to overlook that, especially since he is such a companionable writer. Frida, sorry about this. My little dog is over on the bed. She is not within 3 feet of me, and that is causing her to go insane. She is going insane. She's perfectly happy to completely ignore me when she's 1 foot away from me, but if she's any more than that, she goes insane. And all I want you to do is just, Frida, just relax. I'm right here. Just relax. Anyway, we've only got one more book to go. Sorry, she's ripping at things like she was some brain damaged little puppy, because I'm not within reach. It's just, anyway, we'll finish up with this. This is a book that I've already read. I had a copy and I really liked it, so this copy that I found at the Brattle is not mine, but I'm glad to have it again. I got rid of it for some reason. This is Simon Schama, and this is his book Scribble, 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 with a great subtitle, Writing on Politics, Ice Cream, Churchill, and My Mother. And this is a collection of largely critical pieces, but not literary criticism. I can't remember off the top of my head if Simon Schama has a collection of his literary pieces. He wrote them, same as anybody else. He wrote them regularly. If he's still alive, he's still writing them. I guarantee you he has a piece that someone is waiting for. But I don't know if they've ever been collected. This is more broad stuff. There are travel pieces in here. There's stuff on cooking. There's stuff on politics. There's stuff on drama and television. I don't mind because I love this author. The same thing with Edward Weeks. I'm mainly interested in just spending time on the page with the author. So there you go. That was a Brattle trip. We have Scribble, Scribble, Scribble. We have Fresh Waters, in which Edward Weeks recounts his conversion to fishing. We have Selected Writings of Irving Howe, a nice big volume. We have an earlier collection of Irving Howe, The Critical Point. We have Nicholas and Alexandra by Robert K. Massey. Long since time that I had a copy of this on my shelf. We have The Truth About a Publisher, a publishing memoir by the man who gave us The Lord of the Rings. And then we have 2 Edmund O'Hanlon, In Trouble Again and Into the Heart of Borneo, in these old vintage traveler editions. So, not a bad trip to the Brattle, although it isn't 50 books. It isn't 50 pounds of books. Are my book discoveries contouring themselves to the bag that I'm using? Oh, I would hate that if that were true. But we shall see. We shall find out. Within the next week, I will go out book expediting an expedition again, and we'll see if it's a discrete number of books, or, I mean, this won't last me the weekend. But we will see. I will report back. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.